If you throw a heavy object against a concrete wall, it comes back at you with the exact same force. This is Newton's third law, action and reaction. Every schoolboy learns this principle in physics class, watches the demonstration with the pendulum and the steel balls, nods his head in understanding, and then walks out into the world and promptly forgets that this same law governs every single aspect of his existence. Most men understand this principle when it comes to ballistics, when it comes to the momentum of physical objects hurtling through space, but they ignore it completely when it comes to finance, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to the trajectory of their own thoughts, ricocheting through the invisible architecture of reality. There exists a woman who saw what others could not see, who understood that the universe operates on a set of mathematical principles so precise, so unforgiving, that if you could learn the formula, you could calculate your own destiny with the same accuracy that an engineer calculates the load-bearing capacity of a bridge. Her name was Florence Scovel Shinn, and history has tried to bury her in the category of mystic or spiritual teacher, but this is a profound misclassification. She was not a mystic, she was a mathematician of fate, a cartographer of the invisible laws that govern the return on every investment you make with your thoughts, your words, and your deeds. She famously stated, "The game of life is a game of boomerangs. Our thoughts, deeds, and words return to us sooner or later with astounding accuracy." Read that statement again and notice what it does not say. It does not say sometimes, or maybe, or if you are lucky. It says sooner or later, with astounding accuracy. Which means this is not magic, this is not wishful thinking, this is karmic mathematics. The reason most men live in quiet desperation, watching their bank accounts dwindle while their anxieties multiply, is because they are throwing boomerangs of doubt, fear, and complaint into the universe every single day. And then they stand there shocked, absolutely bewildered, when those same boomerangs come screaming back and strike them in the face. They curse their luck. They blame the economy, they point fingers at external circumstances, never once realizing that they are both the pitcher and the catcher in this game. Shinn understood something that the modern world has forgotten, that there is a law operating behind the curtain of visible reality, a law as reliable as gravity, as predictable as compound interest, and if you learn to work with this law instead of against it, you can engineer the exact life you desire, with the precision of an architect drafting blueprints. The promise of this transmission is simple, and it is absolute. In the next sequence of revelations, you will learn how to calculate the trajectory of your thoughts before you release them into the world. You will discover how to use the Boomerang Law to stop hitting yourself in the face with poverty, sickness, and failure, and start forcing the universe to return cash, opportunities, and results to you with the speed and accuracy of a heat-seeking missile. This is not theory. This is operational intelligence, and by the end of this journey you will possess the formula that has been hidden in plain sight for generations. But before we proceed, there must be a pact between us, an agreement that separates those who will merely listen from those who will actually transform. The information you are about to receive is not entertainment, it is ammunition. And ammunition is worthless in the hands of someone who refuses to load the weapon and pull the trigger. Florence Scovel Shinn did not write her teachings for the curious. She wrote them for the committed, for those who are so tired of losing the game that they are finally ready to learn the rules. If you're still playing the victim, if you are still waiting for someone to rescue you, if you are still blaming your circumstances for your results, then this transmission is not for you, and you should stop now before you waste another moment of your time. But if you are ready, if you have reached that point of holy discontent where you would rather die than spend another year broke, another year invisible, another year watching lesser men win while you sit on the sidelines, then listen carefully. The universe does not care about your excuses, your tragic backstory, or your feelings of unworthiness. It only cares about the signal you are broadcasting, and it will return that signal to you with mathematical precision, whether you like it or not. This is the game. And the only question that matters is whether you are going to learn to play it or continue to be played by it. So here is your first action, your first signal to the universe that you are done being a victim of the Boomerang Law and ready to become its master. Before this transmission ends, you will make a public declaration in the comments below. You will write the words, "I call my good now," and in doing so, you will throw a new boomerang into the field of infinite possibility, one that must return to you with the exact energy of certainty and command that you put into it. This is not optional. This is the price of entry, and if you are not willing to pay it, then you have already told the universe exactly what kind of return you deserve. The first and most catastrophic error that men make when approaching life is one of classification, a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of the game they are playing. Most men view life as a battle, a brutal grind against an invisible enemy, a war of attrition where you wake up every morning and put on your armor and march out into a hostile world that is actively trying to destroy you. This is the paradigm of resistance, the mindset of the soldier who sees threats in every shadow and believes that survival requires constant vigilance, constant defense, constant struggle against the forces of chaos and scarcity. Florence Scovel Shinn looked at this mentality and recognized it for what it truly is, a tragic misunderstanding that guarantees defeat before the first move is ever made. Shinn corrects this fundamental error with a single revolutionary reframe. Life is not a battle, life is a game. And the difference between these two frameworks is not semantic. It is the difference between a man who spends his entire existence exhausted, depleted, and perpetually under siege, and a man who moves through the world with the calm confidence of someone who knows the rules and knows that if he follows them, victory is not just possible, but inevitable. In a battle, you resist, you defend, you react to attacks. You operate from a position of scarcity, where every resource is precious and every loss is catastrophic. But in a game, you study the rules, you understand the patterns, you make strategic moves, and you trust that the structure of the game itself will reward you for playing correctly. This is not a minor distinction. This is the master key that unlocks everything else Shinn teaches. When you understand that life is a game, you stop wasting energy on resistance, and you start investing energy in alignment. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "What rule am I breaking?" You stop seeing yourself as a victim of random chance, and you start seeing yourself as a player who simply hasn't learned the optimal strategy yet. And here is the revelation that changes everything. The game has rules, and the primary rule, the one that governs all others, is the law of the boomerang. What you throw out must come back to you with astounding accuracy. If you play by the rules of the boomerang, you cannot lose. This is not optimism. This is mathematics. If you understand that every thought you think, every word you speak, every action you take is a boomerang being hurled into the invisible field of causation, and if you understand that this boomerang must return to you carrying the exact energy signature you imprinted upon it, then the game becomes absurdly simple. Throw only the boomerangs you want to catch. Stop throwing boomerangs of complaint, of fear, of doubt, of victimhood, and start throwing boomerangs of prosperity, of health, of abundance, of absolute certainty in your inevitable success. The universe is not judging the content of your boomerangs. It is simply returning them to you with perfect accuracy. Most men lose the game not because the rules are hidden, but because they refuse to believe the rules are real. They throw a boomerang of "I can't afford this," and then they wonder why poverty keeps showing up at their door. They throw a boomerang of "nothing ever works out for me," and then they are shocked when opportunity after opportunity slips through their fingers. They throw a boomerang of "I'm not the kind of person who gets lucky breaks," and then they curse the universe for treating them unfairly. But the universe is not being unfair. The universe is being perfectly, ruthlessly, mathematically fair. It is giving you back exactly what you put in, and if you don't like what you're receiving, the solution is not to complain about the universe. The solution is to change what you're throwing. This is why Shinn insists on the game metaphor with such relentless precision. In a game, there is no shame in losing if you were simply ignorant of the rules. The shame only comes if you continue to lose after the rules have been explained to you. And now the rules are being explained to you, right here, right now, with absolute clarity. Your thoughts are boomerangs, your words are boomerangs. Your beliefs about what is possible for you are boomerangs. And every single one of them is currently in flight, arcing through the invisible realm of causation and preparing to return to you with the exact force and frequency you gave them when you released them into the world. The question, then, is not whether the boomerang law is real. It is operating whether you believe in it or not, just as gravity operates whether you believe in it or not. The question is whether you are going to continue playing the game unconsciously, throwing random boomerangs of negativity and fear, and then acting surprised when your life is filled with chaos and scarcity, or whether you are going to step into the role of the conscious player, the strategic master, who understands that every thought is a move on the board, and every move has consequences that will return to you with mathematical precision. This is the choice before you, and it is a choice you make not once but every single moment of every single day. When you view life as a battle, you are always on the defensive, always reacting, always exhausted. But when you view life as a game, you become the strategist, the one who sees 10 moves ahead, the one who knows that the current position on the board is temporary and that the ultimate outcome is determined not by your starting position, but by the quality of your moves going forward. Shinn is handing you the rulebook, the one that has been available for generations, but that most men never bother to read because they are too busy complaining about how unfair the game is. But the game is not unfair. The game is precise, and precision is the ultimate form of fairness because it means that your results are determined not by luck or favoritism, but by your understanding and application of the rules. So let this understanding sink into your consciousness like a seed planted in fertile soil. You are not at war with the universe, you are playing a game with the universe, and the universe is a flawless opponent that never cheats, never makes mistakes, and always returns what you send out. If you are currently losing the game, it is not because the game is rigged against you. It is because you have been playing by the wrong rules, throwing the wrong boomerangs, making moves based on fear and scarcity instead of certainty and abundance. But the moment you understand the true rules, the moment you internalize the law of the boomerang and begin to play accordingly, everything changes. The game that once seemed impossible to win suddenly becomes impossible to lose. And here is the final piece of this foundational revelation. The game never stops. You are always playing whether you realize it or not, whether you are conscious of your moves or not. Right now, in this very moment, you are throwing boomerangs. The question is whether you are throwing them consciously with precision and intent, or whether you are throwing them unconsciously, scattering your energy in every direction and then wondering why nothing comes back to you in the form you desire. Florence Scovel Shinn is teaching you to become the conscious player, the master of the boomerang, the one who understands that the game of life is not about fighting against external forces, but about aligning your internal signals with the outcomes you desire. This is the game, and now you know the rules. What you do with this knowledge will determine whether you spend the rest of your life as a victim of the boomerang or as its master. The choice, as always, is yours. But understand this: once you know the rules, ignorance is no longer an excuse, and every loss from this point forward is a loss you chose by refusing to play correctly. The universe will not feel sorry for you, will not make exceptions for you, will not bend the rules because you didn't feel like following them. It will simply continue to return your boomerangs with astounding accuracy, and the quality of your life will be determined by the quality of the boomerangs you choose to throw. This is the game Florence Scovel Shinn dedicated her life to teaching, and if you are wise, you will stop fighting it and start playing it with the precision and intent of a grandmaster. But here is where most men, even after understanding that life is a game with rules, make their second catastrophic error. They believe that winning the game means accumulating the largest pile of money, and they sacrifice everything else on the altar of financial success, only to discover too late that they have won a hollow victory that tastes like ashes in their mouth. Florence Scovel Shinn saw this pattern repeat itself throughout history, watched men climb to the top of the financial mountain only to find themselves sick, alone, and spiritually bankrupt. And she understood that this outcome was not the result of bad luck, but the result of a fundamental misunderstanding of what winning actually means in the game of life. The return must be balanced. This is not a feel-good platitude. This is a mathematical requirement embedded in the structure of reality itself. Shinn speaks of what she calls the square of life, and this geometric metaphor is precise. A square has 4 sides of equal length, and if any one side is shorter or longer than the others, the structure collapses and you no longer have a square. You have a distorted rectangle, an unstable shape that cannot support the weight of a truly abundant life. The four sides of the square of life, according to Shinn, are health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. And true success, real winning, means that all four sides are strong, that you are not robbing Peter to pay Paul, that you are not sacrificing your body to build your bank account, or destroying your relationships to pursue your career. Consider the man who makes his first $1 million, but develops a stress-induced heart condition in the process. He threw a boomerang of financial ambition, and yes, the money came back to him. The universe never fails to return what you send out. But he also threw boomerangs of self-neglect, of ignoring his body's warning signals, of believing that sleep is for the weak, and that health is something you worry about later. And those boomerangs came back too with the same astounding accuracy, in the form of chest pain and prescription bottles, and a cardiologist telling him that if he doesn't slow down, he won't live to see 50. Did he win the game? By the conventional definition, yes. By Shinn's definition, absolutely not, because the boomerang hit him in the face. He got his money at the cost of the vessel he needs to enjoy that money. This is the trap that the modern world sets for ambitious men. It teaches you to optimize for one variable while ignoring all the others, to pour all your energy into the pursuit of wealth while letting health deteriorate, relationships crumble, and your sense of purpose and meaning atrophy from neglect. And the universe, operating according to the ruthless precision of the Boomerang Law, gives you exactly what you asked for. Financial success purchased at the price of everything else that makes life worth living. You asked for money, and you got money, but you forgot to ask for the health to enjoy it, the love to share it, and the sense of fulfillment that comes from expressing your unique gifts in the world. You optimized for one corner of the square, and the entire structure collapsed. Shinn's genius is that she refuses to let you make this mistake. She insists with the stubbornness of a mathematician who will not let you submit an equation with missing variables, that you must aim for the perfect design, the balanced return, the square that has all four sides of equal strength. This means that when you throw your boomerangs, you cannot just throw boomerangs of wealth. You must also throw boomerangs of vibrant health, of deep and meaningful relationships, of work that feels like the fullest expression of who you are and what you came here to do. You must declare not just I am wealthy, but I am wealthy and healthy and loved and living my purpose, because the universe will return to you exactly what you declare, and if you leave variables out of the equation, those variables will return to you as voids, as gaps, as missing pieces that no amount of money can fill. This is why so many successful people are miserable. They won the game by the world's definition. They have the money, the status, the external markers of achievement, but they lost the game by Shinn's definition because they failed to maintain the balance of the square. They threw boomerangs of ambition and sacrifice and I'll rest when I'm dead. And the universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, returned those boomerangs with astounding accuracy. Ambition returned as wealth, sacrifice returned as lost relationships, and I'll rest when I'm dead returned as chronic illness that forced them to rest much sooner than they anticipated. The universe doesn't judge your priorities. It simply executes them with ruthless efficiency. And here is the part that most men find difficult to accept. You cannot cheat the square of life. You cannot fake balance. You cannot tell yourself, I'll just focus on money for the next 5 years and then I'll work on my health and relationships, because the boomerangs you throw today are already in flight, already locked onto their trajectory, already programmed to return to you with the exact energy you gave them. If you spend 5 years throwing boomerangs of imbalance, the universe will spend 5 years returning imbalance to you, and by the time you decide you're ready to work on the other areas, you will have built such momentum in the direction of imbalance that course correcting becomes exponentially more difficult. The strategy, then, is to build the square from the beginning, to throw balanced boomerangs from day one, to understand that true wealth is not measured by your bank account alone, but by the totality of your life experience across all 4 dimensions. This means that every day you must ask yourself, am I nourishing my body or depleting it? Am I building connections with the people I love or allowing those relationships to wither from neglect? Am I doing work that feels authentic and meaningful, or am I prostituting my energy for a paycheck? These questions are not secondary to the pursuit of wealth. They are integral to it, because if you get the money but lose everything else, you have not won the game. You have simply traded one form of poverty for another. Florence Scovel Shinn understood something that the hustle culture gurus will never tell you. The universe does not reward imbalance, even if that imbalance is in the direction of wealth. The universe rewards alignment, coherence, the integrity of the square. When all four sides are strong, when you are healthy and wealthy and loved and living your purpose, that is when the boomerangs start returning with exponential force, because you are no longer sending mixed signals into the field of causation. You are broadcasting a clear, coherent frequency that says, I am whole, I am complete, I am living the fullest expression of what it means to be human, and the universe cannot help but return that signal to you, amplified, multiplied, compounded, beyond what your logical mind thought was possible. This is what Shinn means when she talks about the perfect design. It is not some abstract spiritual concept. It is a precise blueprint for engineering a life that actually works. A life where the returns you receive match the fullness of your humanity rather than just the narrowness of your ambition. And the beautiful paradox is that when you aim for the perfect design, when you refuse to sacrifice any side of the square, you often end up with more wealth than the person who is obsessively focused on money alone, because you are not leaking energy through the cracks of neglect and imbalance. You are a closed system, a coherent signal, a boomerang that returns with maximum force because there is no drag, no resistance, no self-sabotage embedded in the trajectory. So let this be your new definition of success, your new metric for whether you are winning the game. Are all four sides of your square growing in equal measure? Are you throwing boomerangs that nourish your body, build your wealth, deepen your relationships, and allow you to express your unique gifts in the world? Because if you are not, if you are pouring all your energy into one corner while the others crumble, then no matter how much money you make, no matter how impressive your external achievements, you are losing the game by the only metric that actually matters, the wholeness and balance of your lived experience. The universe will return what you send out with astounding accuracy, and if what you're sending out is imbalanced, what comes back will be imbalanced too. This is not punishment, this is precision. This is the Boomerang Law in its purest form, and it is teaching you with the patience of a master that true wealth is measured in squares, not dollars. Now you must understand how this teaching connects to the larger architecture of universal law, how Florence Scovel Shinn's work is not a standalone philosophy, but rather a specific application of principles that other masters have articulated in different language. Wallace D. Wattles, in his seminal work, The Science of Getting Rich, teaches us that there is a certain way of doing things, a precise method of thinking and acting that produces wealth with scientific reliability. Wattles builds the car, the vehicle of action and disciplined thought, and his system works. Thousands have proven it. But Florence Scovel Shinn comes along and adds the critical missing piece. She draws the map. She shows you where to point that vehicle. She teaches you how to speak while you act, so that your words align with your actions and both align with the outcome you desire. You can drive the certain way that Wattles prescribes. You can take all the right actions. You can work with discipline and persistence and unwavering faith in the creative power of the universe. But if your words are negative, if you are speaking doubt while taking action, if you are declaring scarcity while trying to create abundance, then you are not driving toward your destination. You are driving off a cliff. This is the bridge that Shinn builds between thought and manifestation, between internal belief and external result. Wattles tells you to move. Shinn tells you what to say while you're moving. Wattles gives you the engine. Shinn gives you the steering wheel. Both are necessary, and without both, you are operating an incomplete system that will produce incomplete results. The synthesis is this. Wattles teaches the power of action taken in a certain mental state, gratitude, faith, purposeful vision. He insists that you must think in a certain way and then act from that consciousness, trusting that the formless substance of the universe will arrange itself to support your clear intention. This is true and it works, but Shinn adds the crucial dimension of the spoken word, the command-given voice, the declaration that hardens abstract thought into concrete reality. She understands that thought is powerful, but word is weaponized thought, that when you speak something out loud, you are not merely thinking it, you are casting it into the world as a boomerang that must return to you with the force of law. This is why so many people fail even when they try to apply Wattles' principles correctly. They visualize their goal, they take action toward it, they even cultivate gratitude for what they have. But then they open their mouths and destroy everything with careless speech. They say things like, "This probably won't work," or "I hope I can afford that someday," or "With my luck, something will go wrong." And in doing so, they throw boomerangs of doubt and limitation that collide with the boomerangs of abundance they were trying to throw through their actions. The result is cancellation, interference, mixed signals, and the universe, receiving contradictory instructions, produces contradictory results, or no results at all. Shinn saw this pattern and understood that words are not just expressions of thought. They are creative forces in their own right, operating according to laws just as precise as the physical laws that govern matter and energy. When Wattles tells you to act in a certain way, Shinn clarifies what that way must include: ruthless discipline over your speech, absolute control over the declarations you make, understanding that every word is a line of code being written into the program of your life. If you say it, the universe must execute it. If you declare poverty, poverty must manifest. If you declare abundance, abundance must manifest. There is no room for casual speech, no space for just joking around, because the subconscious mind, which is the intermediary between your conscious declarations and the universal creative force, has no sense of humor and takes every word as a direct command. This integration of Wattles and Shinn creates a complete system. Think in the certain way that Wattles describes, act from that consciousness with persistence and faith, and while you are thinking and acting, speak only words that align with the outcome you are creating. Do not contaminate your actions with contradictory speech. Do not undermine your vision with casual declarations of limitation. Do not throw boomerangs of doubt while trying to build a life of certainty. The universe is listening to everything, your thoughts, your actions, and especially your words, and it will give you back a result that perfectly reflects the totality of the signal you are broadcasting. Most men never achieve this alignment because they have been trained to treat language as something casual, something inconsequential, something they can use carelessly without repercussion. They will spend hours crafting a business plan or optimizing their workout routine, understanding that precision in these areas matters, but then they will walk around all day speaking defeat, limitation, and impossibility, as if words were just meaningless noise. Shinn is telling you with the urgency of someone trying to save you from a fatal mistake that words are not meaningless. They are the most powerful creative tool you possess, more powerful than your actions, more powerful than your thoughts, because words are thought made audible. Intention given force, and once spoken, they become boomerangs that must return to you. So when you combine Wattles' certain way with Shinn's Boomerang Law, you get a precision instrument for engineering reality. Think with gratitude and absolute faith in the creative power of the universe. Act in alignment with your vision, taking every step as if success is inevitable because it is. And speak, constantly and consistently, the words that match the reality you are building, understanding that every declaration is a deposit into the universal bank that must pay dividends. This is not mysticism. This is applied metaphysics. And the men who understand it and execute it become unstoppable, not because they are lucky, but because they have learned to play by the actual rules of the game instead of the imaginary rules that society taught them. The bridge between Wattles and Shinn is not just intellectual, it is operational. It means that you cannot separate thought from action from speech. They must form a unified field, a coherent signal, a boomerang with perfect aerodynamics. If any one element is misaligned, the entire system breaks down and you get turbulence, delay, or failure. But when all three are synchronized, when you are thinking abundance, acting from abundance, and speaking abundance, then you create a resonance so powerful that the universe has no choice but to return abundance to you with exponential force. This is the synthesis, the integration, the bridge that turns ancient wisdom into modern weaponry. And now we arrive at what Shinn calls active faith, which is perhaps the most misunderstood principle in all of success literature, because the term faith has been so corrupted by religious passivity that most men hear it and think it means waiting around for God to drop blessings into their lap. This is not what Shinn means, and it is not what Wattles means when he talks about faith in the certain way. Active faith is the opposite of passive hoping. It is the physical demonstration of internal certainty, the behavioral proof that you actually believe what you say you believe. Wattles demands action, and Shinn clarifies what kind of action counts as faith, not desperate, anxious action, but preparation for the thing you have asked for, even before it arrives. Let me make this concrete. If you say you are calling forth financial abundance, but you have not prepared a system for managing that abundance when it arrives, then you do not have active faith. You have passive wishing. If you declare that you are attracting your perfect relationship, but you have not made space in your life, your home, your schedule for another person, then you are not exercising active faith. You are engaging in fantasy. Active faith means that you act as if the thing is already done, already on its way, already inevitable, and therefore you must prepare the infrastructure to receive it. This preparation is not superstition, it is signal, and the universe reads signals with perfect accuracy. Think of it this way. When you prepare for something before it manifests, you are throwing a boomerang of absolute certainty. You are telling the universe through your actions, I know this is coming and I am getting ready for it. And that signal of certainty is itself a creative force that accelerates the return of the boomerang. But when you fail to prepare, when you say you want something but make no room for it in your life, you are throwing a boomerang of doubt, and the universe reads that signal as, he says he wants this, but he doesn't really believe it will happen, so I will match his actual belief rather than his stated desire. This is why so many prayers go unanswered. Not because God is not listening, but because the person praying is sending mixed signals, asking for one thing with their words, but declaring the opposite with their actions. Shinn gives a perfect example of this principle in action. A woman desired a specific sum of money, and Shinn instructed her to go out and purchase something she would need once the money arrived, something she could not afford in her current state, but that made perfect sense in the state she was moving toward. This was not reckless spending. This was active faith, a physical signal to the universe that said, I am already operating as the person who has this money, and I am preparing accordingly. And according to Shinn's account, the money manifested shortly thereafter, because the act of preparation created a coherence between the woman's words, her thoughts, and her actions. She threw a perfectly aligned boomerang, and the universe had no choice but to return it. This is what Wattles means when he insists that you must act now, not wait until conditions are perfect, not delay until you feel ready, but act from the consciousness of success even when external circumstances suggest failure. The act of moving forward, of preparing for the good you have declared, is itself the bridge between the invisible world of thought and the visible world of form. You cannot just sit in meditation visualizing abundance while living in a state of chaotic unpreparedness. The universe will read the chaos as your true signal and return chaos to you. But when you combine the internal work of visualization and declaration with the external work of preparation and action, you create a field of resonance so powerful that manifestation becomes not miraculous, but inevitable. Most men fail not because they lack faith, but because their faith is passive rather than active. They believe in the principles intellectually, they nod along when they read Wattles or Shinn, they even practice visualization and affirmation, but then they sit back and wait for the universe to deliver, as if they were customers at a restaurant who placed an order and now expect the waiter to bring their meal while they do nothing. But the universe is not a restaurant, and you are not a customer. You are a co-creator, and co-creation requires participation. Your job is to throw the boomerang with clarity and force, and then to position yourself in the exact spot where that boomerang will land, which means you must prepare the landing zone through tangible physical action that demonstrates your absolute certainty that the boomerang is on its way. This is the reason why fake it till you make it actually works when applied correctly. It is not about lying or being inauthentic. It is about acting from the end result, behaving as the person you are becoming rather than the person you currently are, and in doing so, sending a signal of such powerful certainty that the universe cannot help but match that frequency. When you act as if success is inevitable, when you prepare for abundance before it arrives, when you make decisions from the consciousness of already having what you desire, you are not pretending. You are operating according to the actual laws of creation, which state that manifestation follows consciousness and consciousness is demonstrated through action. The final piece of active faith is this: it eliminates anxiety. When you are actively preparing for the good you have declared, you have no mental space for worry, doubt, or fear, because you are too busy taking the concrete steps that will allow you to receive that good when it arrives. Anxiety is what happens when there is a gap between what you say you want and what you are actually doing to prepare for it. But when thought, word, and action are all aligned in the same direction, anxiety dissolves because you are no longer in conflict with yourself. You are a unified force moving toward a single target, and that unity is what gives your boomerang its power. So the command is simple: stop waiting, stop hoping, stop treating faith like a passive state of belief, and start treating it like an active state of preparation. If you have declared that wealth is coming, then build the systems to manage that wealth. If you have declared that opportunities are coming, then clear your schedule to receive those opportunities. If you have declared that your perfect life is manifesting, then start living as the person who already has that life, making decisions from that consciousness, preparing the infrastructure that will support that reality. This is active faith, and it is the physical signal that pulls the boomerang back to you with maximum speed and force. Now we arrive at the weapon itself, the tool that Florence Scovel Shinn places in your hand and instructs you to use with absolute precision and relentless discipline. The word. She calls it a magic wand, but this metaphor is too soft for the modern mind, too associated with fairy tales and fantasy. For the man who needs to understand the mechanics rather than the poetry, think of your word as a command line code, a string of instructions you are typing directly into the operating system of reality. The universe is a computer, consciousness is the programmer, and your words are the code you are writing every single day, every single hour, whether you realize it or not. And just like a computer executes every line of code you give it without judgment or interpretation, the universe executes every word you speak without filtering for whether you meant it, whether it was a joke, whether you were being sarcastic. The scripture states, "By your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." This is not religious poetry, this is technical documentation for how reality works. You are condemned by your words in the most literal sense. When you say, "I am broke," you have just written a line of code that the universal computer must execute, and it will organize circumstances, opportunities, and outcomes to match the reality you declared. When you say, "Nothing ever works out for me," you have just programmed failure into your life with the same certainty that a programmer creates a loop in software. The universe does not argue with you, does not correct you, does not try to protect you from your own declarations. It simply says, "Yes, if that is what you declare, that is what you will experience." And it goes to work, making your words become flesh. And here is the part that destroys most men. They think they can compartmentalize their speech, that they can speak carelessly in casual conversation and then speak with precision when they are doing their affirmations, as if the universe only listens during designated practice times. But consciousness does not have office hours. The subconscious mind, which is the receiver and transmitter of your signals to the universal creative force, is always listening, always recording, always taking every word as a direct instruction. It does not distinguish between a joke and a declaration, between something you said flippantly and something you said seriously, because it operates on frequency and repetition, not intention. If you say something repeatedly, even as a joke, you have just created a pattern, a program, a boomerang that must return to you. This is why Shinn insists, with the severity of a drill sergeant who knows that one careless mistake in training will result in death in combat, that you must stop speaking carelessly. You must treat every utterance that comes out of your mouth as a line of code being written into your life's program, because that is exactly what it is. The man who jokes about being bad with money is not harmlessly venting, he is programming poverty. The man who casually remarks, "With my luck, something will go wrong," is not being realistic. He is casting a spell of failure over his endeavors. The man who says, "I could never afford that," or "That's not for people like me," is not being humble. He is building a prison of limitation with the bars made of his own words, and then he will spend years wondering why he cannot break free. To trigger the instant return that Shinn promises is possible, your speech must be ruthless in its positivity. Notice that word, ruthless. Not naive, not Pollyanna-ish, not divorced from reality, but ruthless, meaning you must be willing to cut out every word, every phrase, every casual declaration that does not align with the life you are building. This is not about being fake or putting on a false persona. This is about understanding that words are not just expressions of your current reality. They are creative forces that shape your future reality, and if you are speaking from your current limitations, you are guaranteeing that those limitations will follow you into your future. The subconscious mind has no sense of humor. Let that sentence land with its full weight. When you joke about failure, about poverty, about bad luck, about being cursed, the subconscious mind does not recognize the social context of humor. It only recognizes the repetition of a pattern, and it interprets that repetition as an instruction. You are literally programming yourself for the outcome you are joking about. And then when that outcome manifests, you will say, "See, I knew it would happen," never realizing that the reason you knew is because you declared it repeatedly with the force of your own voice, and the universe simply executed the program you wrote. This is the level of discipline Shinn is demanding from you. And it is the level of discipline that separates the men who transform their lives from the men who spend decades studying success principles without ever experiencing success. The difference is not in knowledge. Most men know they should be positive. The difference is in execution, in the willingness to police your own speech with such vigilance that not a single word escapes your lips unless it aligns with the reality you are constructing. This means you must develop a new relationship with language, treating words not as casual tools for venting or socializing, but as sacred instruments of creation that must be wielded with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. And here is the practical application. From this moment forward, you must institute a zero-tolerance policy for negative declarations. You do not joke about being broke. You do not casually remark that things never work out for you. You do not say, "I can't afford it." You say, "That's not a priority for me right now," or "I choose to allocate my resources elsewhere," because those statements maintain your power and your agency rather than declaring poverty. You do not say, "I'm so unlucky." You say, "I am learning to align my energy with better outcomes," because that statement points toward growth rather than cementing a pattern of failure. Every word must be chosen with the understanding that it is a boomerang being thrown, and you will catch it. The men who master this principle report something almost eerie. Once they clean up their speech, once they stop contaminating their field with negative declarations, opportunities begin to appear as if by magic. Synchronicities multiply. Doors open that were previously locked. But it is not magic. It is mathematics. They stopped throwing boomerangs of limitation and started throwing boomerangs of possibility. And the universe, operating according to the law of perfect return, began delivering outcomes that matched the new frequency they were broadcasting. The change in circumstances was dramatic, not because the universe suddenly favored them, but because they finally stopped sabotaging themselves with their own words. This is the weapon Florence Scovel Shinn is handing you. The disciplined use of your word as a creative instrument. It is not complicated, but it is difficult, because it requires constant vigilance, constant self-correction, constant awareness of the fact that you are always programming your future with your present speech. But the men who accept this discipline, who commit to speaking only words that align with the outcomes they desire, discover that they possess a power that most people never access, a power that was always available, but that they were using unconsciously and destructively. Now you will use it consciously and constructively, and the difference in results will be so dramatic that people will think you have been given some unfair advantage. The advantage is not unfair. It is simply the natural consequence of learning to use the weapon correctly, and the weapon is your word. Now we must address the precision of this weapon, because imprecise use is as dangerous as no use at all. When Shinn talks about using words to create reality, she is not suggesting that you simply repeat empty affirmations while your mind screams the opposite, because that creates internal conflict, and mixed signals that cancel each other out. The power of the word is unleashed when there is alignment between what you speak and what you believe, or at minimum, when what you speak begins to gradually shift what you believe through repetition and evidence. This is why Shinn insists on what she calls targeted declarations, specific, precise statements that point to exact outcomes rather than vague generalities that give the universe too much room for interpretation. Consider the difference between these two declarations. I want to be rich versus I give thanks that I now receive income from multiple sources, totaling at least $10,000 per month, in ways that are perfect for me and beneficial to all. The first declaration is weak, vague, and filled with the energy of lack. The word want itself implies not having. The second declaration is precise, specific, stated in present or perfect tense as if it is already done or currently unfolding, and most importantly, it gives the universe clear instructions about what form the outcome should take. The first statement throws a wobbly boomerang that might land anywhere or nowhere. The second throws a perfectly weighted boomerang programmed with GPS coordinates for its exact target. This is what Shinn means by precise targeting. You must stop speaking in generalities and start speaking in specifics. If you desire financial abundance, you must define what abundance means to you in concrete terms. Not, I want more money, but I give thanks for my monthly income of specific amount. If you desire a relationship, you do not say, I want to find someone. You say, I give thanks for my perfect partner who possesses specific qualities and with whom I share specific experiences. The more precise your declaration, the clearer the instructions you are giving to the universal creative force, and the clearer the instructions, the faster and more accurate the return. But here is where men make a critical error. They mistake precision for limitation, thinking that if they are too specific, they are somehow restricting what the universe can deliver. This is backwards thinking, born from a lack of understanding about how manifestation actually works. When you are vague, you are not giving the universe freedom, you are giving it confusion. You are throwing a boomerang without a clear trajectory, and it will return to you with the same vagueness you sent out. But when you are precise, you are not limiting the universe. You are focusing its infinite power through the lens of your clear intention, the same way a magnifying glass focuses diffuse sunlight into a burning point of concentrated energy. This is why Shinn's most successful students kept detailed written declarations, reviewing them daily, speaking them out loud, treating them like sacred contracts between themselves and the universal law. They understood that the written word carries even more power than the spoken word, because it requires deliberate thought, because it creates a physical record, because it can be reviewed and repeated with consistency. When you write down your declarations and speak them daily, you are not just hoping, you are programming, you are creating a pattern of resonance so strong that the universe cannot help but reorganize itself to match that pattern. The mechanism behind this is that repetition carves neural pathways in your brain and energetic patterns in the field around you. The first time you speak a declaration that contradicts your current circumstances, your conscious mind will likely resist, will throw up objections, will say, but that's not true yet. This is normal. But if you continue speaking the declaration with consistency, something remarkable happens. Your subconscious mind begins to accept it as true, begins to look for evidence of its truth, begins to reorganize your perceptions, behaviors, and decisions to align with this new truth. And the universe, reading your frequency, begins to deliver opportunities, resources, and circumstances that match the reality you have been consistently declaring. This is not self-delusion. This is self-direction. You are not denying current circumstances. You are declaring the direction of change, and the universe, operating according to the law of the boomerang, must reflect that direction back to you. But the key is that you must never contaminate your declarations with contradictory statements. You cannot spend 5 minutes in the morning declaring abundance and then spend the rest of the day complaining about bills, joking about being broke, or speaking from the consciousness of lack. Every word that contradicts your declaration throws a counter boomerang that delays or cancels the return of the boomerang you want. So, the discipline is total. You must become a guardian of your own speech, monitoring every word, correcting every negative declaration the moment it leaves your mouth, and consistently, relentlessly, speaking only words that align with the life you are building. This sounds exhausting, and at first it is because you are breaking patterns that have been reinforced over decades. But with practice, it becomes automatic, and eventually you reach a state where speaking negatively feels wrong, feels like poison in your mouth, because you have trained yourself to recognize that words are not meaningless. They are the very substance with which you are sculpting your future. The final instruction on precise targeting is this: your declarations must include gratitude, present tense, and inevitability. Gratitude because it presupposes receipt. You do not thank someone for something you do not have or expect to have. Present tense or perfect tense because the subconscious mind does not understand future tense. If you say, "I will be wealthy," you are programming perpetual waiting. But if you say, "I am wealthy," or "I give thanks that wealth is now manifesting," you are programming present reality. And inevitability because there must be no doubt, no hedging, no if it works out or hopefully, only the absolute certainty that what you have declared must manifest because the law of the boomerang is as reliable as gravity. This is the weapon in its most refined form. Targeted, precise, repeated declarations, spoken with the authority of someone who understands that they are not begging the universe for favors, but commanding it to execute the program they are writing. The universe will obey, because obedience is its nature. It has no choice but to return what you send out with astounding accuracy. The only question is whether you will send out clear, powerful, precise signals through disciplined speech, or whether you will continue to contaminate your field with the careless words that have kept you trapped in limitation. The weapon is in your hand. Learn to use it with ruthless precision, or watch it destroy you through careless misuse. The choice, as always, is yours. Now we must address the paradox that destroys most men before they ever gain traction with these principles. What do you do when obstacles appear, when problems arise, when circumstances seem to contradict the declarations you have been making? The instinct, hardwired into human nature by millions of years of survival programming, is to fight, to resist, to push against the obstacle with all your force in an attempt to overcome it through sheer willpower. But Florence Scovel Shinn, drawing on a wisdom that transcends instinct, teaches something that sounds insane to the logical mind but proves devastatingly effective in practice: non-resistance. This is not passivity, not surrender, not giving up. This is mental judo, and if you understand it correctly, it becomes the most powerful technique in your arsenal. The principle of non-resistance is based on a law that Shinn articulates with perfect clarity. What you resist persists. When you push against something with force, you are actually feeding it energy, giving it attention, making it more real and more solid in your experience. This is not metaphor, this is mechanics. Energy flows where attention goes, and when you focus your attention on a problem in the mode of resistance, you are literally pumping energy into that problem, making it larger, more intractable, more permanent. You think you are fighting the obstacle, but you are actually fertilizing it, watering it, ensuring that it grows stronger and more entrenched in your life. Think of it like quicksand. The more you struggle against quicksand, the faster you sink. The survival instinct says fight, thrash, use all your strength to escape, but that instinct gets you killed. The correct response is counterintuitive. You must relax, you must spread your weight, you must stop resisting the substance that is pulling you down, and only then can you slowly work your way to solid ground. This is the exact metaphor for how to deal with life's obstacles. The moment you start fighting them, you sink deeper. The moment you relax into non-resistance, you create the space for solutions to emerge. Let me give you the practical application. A bill arrives that you cannot pay. The instinct is panic, resistance, obsessive worry about how terrible this is, and how it's going to ruin your credit and how you'll never get out of debt. Every one of those thoughts is resistance, and every moment of resistance is a boomerang of scarcity being thrown into the universe. You are literally programming more financial problems by focusing on the current financial problem with the energy of fear and struggle. But if you understand non-resistance, you take a different approach. You acknowledge the bill without emotional charge. You say, "This is temporary, and the universe is already arranging the supply I need." And then you shift your attention away from the problem and toward the solution, toward the vision of abundance, toward the declaration that money flows to you easily and constantly. This is mental judo. You do not block the attack. You step aside and let the negative energy exhaust itself against thin air. You do not give the problem your resistance, which would make it stronger. You give it your non-resistance, which drains it of power. And here is what happens in practice. When you stop obsessing over the problem, when you stop feeding it attention and emotional energy, the problem often resolves itself through channels you never would have predicted. An unexpected check arrives, a payment plan becomes available, someone offers help, an opportunity for extra income presents itself, not because you fought harder, but because you stopped fighting and allowed the universe to deliver the solution through the path of least resistance. Shinn observed this pattern repeatedly in her practice. The clients who struggled the most were the ones who could not let go of their problems, who held on to their obstacles with a death grip, who insisted on analyzing and worrying and figuring out how to solve everything through force of personal will. But the clients who experienced rapid transformation were the ones who learned to release, to trust, to say, "I do not need to know how this will be solved. I only need to know that it will be solved," and then to shift their attention back to their vision of the desired outcome. The difference in results was not marginal, it was night and day, and the difference was entirely in the practice of non-resistance. This does not mean you do nothing. Non-resistance is not the same as inaction. When inspired action presents itself, when you receive clear intuition about a step to take, you take that step with confidence and without hesitation. But you do not take action from the energy of panic, from the consciousness of, "I must fix this problem or I'm doomed." You take action from the energy of, "I am moving toward my desired outcome, and this action is part of the path." The action is the same, but the consciousness behind it is completely different. And that difference in consciousness determines whether the action is effective or whether it just creates more problems. The reason most men cannot practice non-resistance is because they have been trained to equate it with weakness, with being passive, with letting life push them around. But true non-resistance requires more strength than resistance does, because it requires you to override your survival instincts, to stay calm when every nerve in your body is screaming at you to fight, to trust in invisible laws when visible circumstances are telling you that you are doomed. This is not weakness, this is mastery. And the men who develop this capacity discover that obstacles which would have consumed months or years of struggle simply dissolve when met with the energy of non-resistance. So the command is this: the next time a problem appears in your life, do not immediately jump to resistance. Do not indulge in panic, worry, or obsessive mental rehearsal of worst-case scenarios. Instead, acknowledge the problem with calm neutrality. Say, "I do not resist this. I trust that the solution is already on its way." And then deliberately shift your attention to your vision of abundance, success, and perfect outcomes. This shift of attention is not denial. It is strategic redirection of energy away from the problem and toward the solution. And because energy flows where attention goes, the solution will grow stronger, while the problem grows weaker, until the balance tips and the problem simply ceases to exist, or resolves itself with minimal effort on your part. This is mental judo, and it is the technique that separates the masters from the amateurs. The amateurs resist everything and wonder why life is such a constant struggle. The masters practice non-resistance and move through life with a grace and ease that looks effortless to outside observers. But that is actually the result of deep understanding and disciplined application of this principle. Stop fighting poverty. Look at supply. Stop fighting illness. Focus on health. Stop fighting loneliness. Claim your perfect relationships. Whatever you resist will persist, but what you stop resisting and start transcending will dissolve like fog in the morning sun. This is the law, and it is operating in your life right now, whether you are aware of it or not. And now we arrive at the technique that Shinn considers the ultimate leverage, the master key that unlocks solutions when nothing else seems to work. Casting the burden. This is not a metaphor, not a poetic expression. but a specific technique with precise mechanics, and when executed correctly, it produces results so rapid and so dramatic that they appear miraculous to observers who do not understand the law being applied. The principle is simple. When the weight of a problem, a desire or a responsibility becomes too heavy for your conscious mind to carry, you deliberately and ceremonially transfer that burden to the superconscious mind, which Shinn also refers to as God, the universe, or the divine intelligence that orchestrates all manifestation. Most men carry their burdens like Atlas carrying the world on his shoulders, convinced that if they do not maintain constant vigilance, constant worry, constant mental effort to solve their problems, everything will fall apart. This is the greatest lie the ego tells you, because the truth is that your conscious mind is not designed to solve complex life problems through force of worry. Your conscious mind is designed to make decisions and take actions, but the actual orchestration of solutions, the arrangement of circumstances, the coordination of thousands of variables to produce the outcome you desire, this is the job of the superconscious mind, which has access to information and capabilities that your conscious mind cannot even comprehend. The technique of casting the burden works like this. When you notice yourself worrying about a problem, when you feel the weight of anxiety or overwhelm, you stop, you take a breath, and you speak out loud or internally. I cast this burden upon the superconscious mind within me, and I go free. The solution to this problem is now manifesting with perfect timing and in ways that are perfect for me. And then, this is the critical part, you release it. You let it go. You refuse to pick it back up. When your mind tries to return to worry, you gently remind yourself, I have cast that burden. It is no longer my job to carry it, and you redirect your attention to something constructive or pleasurable. What happens in this moment of release is that you create space for divine intelligence to work. As long as you are gripping the problem with white knuckles, obsessing over it, trying to force solutions through mental effort, you are blocking the flow of intuition, inspiration, and synchronicity that would naturally deliver the solution. But when you release the burden, when you truly let go and trust that something greater than your conscious mind is now handling it, you open a channel through which solutions can flow. This is not faith in the religious sense of blind belief. This is faith in the practical sense of understanding that there is an intelligence in the universe that knows how to resolve problems far better than your limited perspective can figure out. Shinn documents case after case where the moment of casting the burden was immediately followed by the appearance of the solution. A woman worried about making rent casts the burden, and within hours receives an unexpected check. A man struggling with a business decision casts the burden, and that night dreams the perfect solution. A woman seeking her right employment casts the burden, and the next day runs into someone who offers her the ideal position. The timing is so precise that it seems like magic, but it is not magic. It is the release of tension, the removal of the dam that was blocking the flow, the opening of the channel through which the universe was already trying to deliver the answer. The reason this works with such reliability is because worry and anxiety create energetic static that interferes with manifestation. When you are in a state of fear about a problem, you are broadcasting a frequency of lack, of not having, of desperation, and the universe, reading that frequency, continues to deliver circumstances that match it. But when you cast the burden, you shift your frequency from lack to trust, from desperation to confidence, from I have to figure this out to it is being figured out for me. And that shift in frequency is itself a boomerang of certainty that must return to you as resolution. This technique requires practice because the ego does not want to let go. The ego believes that constant worry is somehow productive, that if you stop obsessing over a problem, you are being irresponsible or naive. But this is illusion. Worry has never solved a single problem in the history of humanity. It has only made problems feel larger and more insurmountable. Action solves problems, and inspiration delivers action, and inspiration cannot flow through a mind that is clenched in anxiety. So casting the burden is not irresponsible. It is the most responsible thing you can do, because it removes the blockage that was preventing the solution from reaching you. The final instruction is this: make casting the burden a daily practice. Every morning before you begin your day, Take inventory of anything that feels heavy, anything you are worried about, anything that is consuming mental energy through anxiety. And one by one, speak out loud. I cast this burden upon the superconscious mind within me, and I go free. Feel the weight lift as you speak those words. Trust that the intelligence that orchestrates the movements of galaxies and the cycles of nature is perfectly capable of handling your business problems, your relationship concerns, your financial challenges, and then go about your day in a state of freedom and lightness, taking inspired action when it presents itself but refusing to pick up the burden of worry again. This is the ultimate leverage because it allows you to access a level of intelligence and capability far beyond your individual mind. You are not alone in this game, and you were never meant to carry all the weight yourself. The superconscious mind is your partner, your ally, your invisible support system, and it is waiting for you to cast your burdens so it can do what it does best: orchestrate perfect solutions that arrive with astounding timing. The men who learn this technique discover that life becomes dramatically easier, not because their problems disappear, but because they stop carrying the emotional weight of those problems, and in that state of lightness and freedom, solutions appear as if by magic. But it is not magic, it is the law of the boomerang operating at its highest level, returning to you the trust and certainty you cast out when you released your burdens. We have now reached the point of synthesis, where all the principles converge into a unified understanding of how the game of life is played and won. You have learned that life is not a battle, but a game with rules, and the primary rule is the law of the boomerang. What you send out must return to you with astounding accuracy. You have learned that winning the game requires balance across the square of life: health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. You have learned to wield the weapon of your word with precision, understanding that every declaration is a line of code being written into the program of your life. You have learned the art of non-resistance, the technique of mental judo that allows you to step aside from obstacles rather than fight them. And you have learned to cast your burdens, to release the weight of anxiety and trust that the superconscious mind will orchestrate solutions beyond what your conscious mind could devise. Now you must integrate these principles into a single operating system, a way of moving through life that is not a collection of separate techniques, but a unified approach to every decision, every word, every thought. The synthesis is this: you are both the pitcher and the catcher in the game of life. Every moment, you are throwing boomerangs through your thoughts, words, and actions, and every moment those boomerangs are in various stages of flight, some just launched, some halfway through their arc, some about to land. Your job is not to control the universe's delivery schedule, that is not within your power, but to control with absolute precision what you are throwing, because the quality of what you throw determines the quality of what returns. This means you must develop a constant awareness of your own signal, a vigilant monitoring of the frequency you are broadcasting through your consciousness and your speech. Are you throwing boomerangs of abundance or scarcity, of health or sickness, of confidence or doubt, of possibility or limitation? The answer is revealed not in what you say you believe, but in what you actually say, what you actually think, what you actually do when pressure is applied and circumstances seem to contradict your desires. The universe does not read your intentions, it reads your signal, and your signal is the sum total of your habitual thoughts, your consistent words, and your repeated actions. The power of this synthesis is that it makes you completely responsible for your results, which sounds like a burden, but is actually the ultimate liberation. If you are responsible, then you are in control. And if you are in control, then there is no limit to what you can create once you learn to operate the controls correctly. The victim says, "Life is happening to me and I am powerless." But the master says, "I am creating my life through my consciousness, and if I don't like what I'm creating, I will change my consciousness." This shift from victimhood to creative authority is the difference between a life of perpetual struggle and a life of increasing mastery. Florence Scovel Shinn's gift to humanity is that she made these invisible laws visible, that she articulated with crystal clarity the mechanics of manifestation that other teachers only hinted at or wrapped in mystical language. She did not ask you to believe in magic. She asked you to observe the mathematical precision with which your words and thoughts return to you as circumstances and results. And once you observe this pattern, once you see it operating in your own life with undeniable consistency, belief becomes irrelevant. You simply know the way you know that dropped objects fall to the ground, that the law of the boomerang is as real and reliable as any physical law. The final piece of synthesis is understanding that this is not a destination but a practice, not a state you achieve once and then maintain effortlessly, but a moment-by-moment choice to align your signal with your desires. You will make mistakes. You will slip into old patterns of negative speech, of resistance, of carrying burdens you should have cast. But the difference between the master and the amateur is not that the master never makes mistakes. It is that the master catches himself faster, corrects the signal immediately, and refuses to turn a momentary slip into a sustained pattern. Every moment is a new opportunity to throw a better boomerang, to speak a more powerful word, to release a burden you've been carrying unnecessarily. The game never stops, and that is good news, because it means you are never locked into your current results. You can begin creating new results right now by changing what you are putting into the field. And now we must speak to the deeper truth that underlies all of these techniques, the foundation upon which the entire structure is built. You are not separate from the creative power of the universe. You are an expression of it, a localized point of consciousness through which the infinite intelligence experiences itself and creates new forms. This is not philosophy. This is the operational reality that makes all manifestation possible. If you were truly separate from the creative force, if you were just a biological machine stumbling through a random universe, then none of these principles would work. There would be no channel through which your thoughts and words could influence outcomes. But you are not separate. You are connected at the deepest level to the same intelligence that grows trees from seeds and orchestrates the dance of planets around stars. Florence Scovel Shinn understood this with profound clarity, and it is why she could make statements that sound audacious to the skeptical mind. Man can only receive what he sees himself receiving. This is not limitation. This is the mechanics of creation. Your imagination is not fantasy. It is the preview function of the creative software you are running. What you can vividly imagine, what you can clearly visualize, what you can see with the inner eye of consciousness, this becomes the template, the blueprint, the energetic mold into which the formless substance of the universe pours itself to create form. You cannot receive what you cannot conceive, because your ability to conceive is the mechanism through which you open the channel to receive. This is why poverty consciousness guarantees poverty, and abundance consciousness guarantees abundance. A man with poverty consciousness literally cannot see himself receiving wealth, cannot imagine it belonging to him, cannot feel it being natural for him, and therefore the channel through which wealth could flow to him remains closed. But a man with abundance consciousness sees wealth as his natural state, feels it flowing to him easily, imagines it in vivid detail, and in doing so, opens the channel wide. The universe does not play favorites. It simply responds to the signal you are broadcasting. And the strongest signal is not what you say you want, but what you actually believe you can have. This is also why visualization and affirmation work when done correctly, but fail when done mechanically. If you are repeating affirmations while your inner dialogue is screaming, "This is bullshit, this will never happen," you are not creating coherence, you are creating interference. The words are throwing one boomerang while the doubt is throwing an opposite boomerang, and they cancel each other out. But when you speak a declaration that your consciousness can accept, even if it's a stretch from your current circumstances, and when you repeat that declaration with enough consistency that your subconscious begins to accept it as true, then you create a unified signal, a coherent frequency, a boomerang with perfect aerodynamics that must return to you as manifestation. The message of empowerment is this: you are not broken, you are not cursed, you are not the victim of forces beyond your control. You are a creative being who has simply been using your creative power unconsciously, throwing boomerangs of limitation because that's what you were taught to throw by a society that does not understand these laws. But now you know, and now you have a choice. Will you continue to create by default? allowing unconscious patterns and negative programming to dictate what you manifest? Or will you step into conscious creation, taking full responsibility for the signal you broadcast and therefore taking full authority over the results you receive? This is not about perfection. You do not need to achieve some impossible standard of never having a negative thought. What matters is the dominant pattern, the consistent signal, the habitual consciousness from which you operate. If 80% of your thoughts and words are aligned with abundance and 20% slip into old patterns of lack, you will still manifest abundance because that's the dominant frequency. But if 80% of your thoughts and words are saturated with complaint, doubt, and limitation, then no amount of positive affirmations practiced for 5 minutes in the morning will override that dominant signal. The universe averages your frequency over time and returns circumstances that match that average. So the work is to gradually shift the average, to increase the percentage of time you spend in the consciousness of abundance, possibility, and certainty, and to decrease the percentage of time you spend in the consciousness of lack, impossibility, and doubt. This is done not through superhuman effort, but through consistent practice of the techniques Shinn has given you. Guarding your speech, practicing non-resistance, casting your burdens, visualizing your desired outcomes, speaking declarations that align with where you're going rather than where you've been. Each time you catch yourself in a negative pattern and correct it, you strengthen the new neural pathway, you reinforce the new pattern, you throw a more powerful boomerang of the reality you actually desire. And here is the promise that Florence Scovel Shinn makes with absolute confidence, based on her observation of thousands of cases. If you apply these principles consistently, if you treat them as laws rather than suggestions, if you guard your consciousness with the vigilance of a sentinel protecting a treasure, then your life will transform in ways that your current mind cannot even imagine. The boomerangs you throw today will return as opportunities, resources, relationships, and experiences that seem miraculous, but they are not miracles. They are the natural, mathematical result of conscious creation according to universal law. You will look back 6 months, a year, 5 years from now and barely recognize the person you were, because that person was playing the game blindfolded while you are now playing with full vision and strategic mastery. And so we arrive at the final moment, the place where theory must transform into commitment, where information must crystallize into action. You have been given the keys to the kingdom, the rulebook for the game of life, the precise mechanics of the Boomerang Law that governs the return on every investment you make with your consciousness. The question that remains is not whether these principles work. They work with the same reliability as any natural law. The question is whether you will work them, whether you will take what you have learned and apply it with the discipline and consistency that separates transformation from mere inspiration. It is time to throw a new boomerang. Right now, in this moment, you are holding in your consciousness the seed of a new reality, a life where the instant return is not some mystical concept, but your lived experience, where you speak and circumstances shift, where you declare and the universe delivers, where you understand that you are not at the mercy of fate, but are actively creating your fate through the signal you broadcast every single day. This seed will only grow if you plant it, and you plant it through action, through commitment, through the public declaration that you are done playing small and ready to play the game at the master level. Florence Scovel Shinn teaches that there is power in the public declaration, in making your intention known not just to yourself, but to witnesses, because this creates accountability and activates the law at a deeper level. When you declare something privately, you can always walk it back, always make excuses, always pretend you weren't really serious. But when you declare something publicly, when you put it in writing where others can see it, you have thrown a boomerang that cannot be recalled. It is in flight, and you have committed yourself to receiving it when it returns. This is why the final instruction is not optional, is not a suggestion, is not something you can skip if you're feeling shy or uncertain. The command is absolute. Write in the comments below, "I call my good now." These 5 words are not a prayer, they are a decree, a line of code, a boomerang thrown with the full force of conscious intention. When you write these words publicly, you are telling the universe, "I am ready, I am worthy. I am claiming what is mine by right of consciousness, and I expect the return to begin immediately." and the universe, operating according to the law of the boomerang, must respond, must begin organizing circumstances to match that declaration, must deliver to you whatever you are holding in consciousness as good. But understand this, the universe will test your commitment. After you make this declaration, circumstances may not immediately shift. In fact, they may seem to get worse for a brief period, as the old patterns make their final stand against the new pattern you are establishing. This is not failure. This is the death rattle of the old reality. And if you hold firm to your declaration, if you refuse to be moved by temporary appearances, if you keep speaking your word with authority and releasing your burdens with trust, then the breakthrough will come with a force proportional to the resistance you faced. This is the final test that most men fail. They declare they're good, they encounter resistance, and they interpret that resistance as proof that it doesn't work, never understanding that the resistance is actually proof that it is working and that the old pattern is being displaced by the new. So your final instruction contains 3 parts. First, write, "I call my good now," in the comments below. Do this before you do anything else, before you close this video, before you move on to the next piece of content. Second, define what good means to you. Write it down privately. Be specific about the boomerangs you are throwing. Create the blueprint for the square of life you are building. Third, commit to guarding your speech for the next 30 days with absolute vigilance, correcting every negative declaration the moment it leaves your mouth, and speaking only words that align with the good you have called forth. If you do these 3 things, if you combine the public declaration with the private blueprint and the daily discipline, then you will experience the instant return that Florence Scovel Shinn promises. Not because you are special, not because you got lucky, but because you learned the rules of the game and played by them with the precision and commitment that the game requires. The universe is not withholding anything from you. It is waiting for you to send out a signal clear enough, consistent enough, powerful enough that it can return an equally clear, consistent, and powerful result. The boomerang is in your hand. The target is set. All that remains is for you to throw it with certainty and prepare to receive what must return. Let the return begin.